I'm Jim Longworth, and welcome to another edition of Triad Today, coming to you once again from the Senior Botanical Garden in Curtisville. We'll tell you more about them later on, and later on is when the roundtable shows up, and we'll get into all sorts of controversial topics, so stay tuned for that. Between now and then, some great guests, important information, but where I want to start is with a first-time visitor to the show to talk about a very serious topic, breast cancer. And we have with us right now Dr. Elizabeth Bond. She's a general surgeon with Northern Regional Hospital, and we welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Why is breast cancer screening so important?
Well, I think the main point for breast cancer screening is early detection. So detecting breast cancer on imaging, for example, a mammogram, prior to a woman being able to feel a mass in her breast, increases the chance of a cure.
Yeah, not wait and do it almost routinely. But now that brings me to this question. Everybody's different. So when should a woman typically, and there's exceptions which I know you'll get into, when should a woman typically start having their first, let's say, a baseline mammogram?
So as a general rule, we say 40 for women without any increased risk factors for breast cancer. So that's always a good place to start. And then as you mentioned, depending on certain risk factors, your doctor may recommend screening prior to that.
I want to come back to risk factors in just a moment, but before I forget, I know what I was going to ask you, and that's about, here we are still in the throes of COVID.
Exactly.
If someone says, okay, I heard Dr. Bond talk about this, I want to get my first screening, but there's COVID still out there, should she postpone it?
Well, for a period of time, mammogram centers were actually only doing emergency mammograms, but at this point, the majority of centers are still doing routine screening. So as long as it's available, it's important to get that baseline as well as yearly follow-up.
Now let's go back to risk. What are some of the risk factors that increase someone of developing breast cancer?
So the most common one that people probably don't think about is female gender. Women are about 100 times more likely to develop breast cancer than men, although men can develop breast cancer as well.
Right.
The second is age. So women, especially once they hit the age of 50, are at increased risk of developing breast cancer.
What about typical things like smoking? And people say, well, who cares if I smoke? But it could have an effect, couldn't it?
Yes, of course. So smoking, alcohol, as well as obesity, but separate from obesity, even physical inactivity have all been linked to increased risk of breast cancer.
Okay. Now, what should a woman do if she feels a change in her breast or a lump? Because you said before, let's don't wait till that happens. Even if she's been having routine mammograms, hey, I've just felt a lump, what should she do at that point?
At that point, she should definitely speak with her physician, likely repeat breast imaging, even if she is up to date on her screening mammograms. But make sure that the radiologist or the mammogram tech knows that there's a lump, because they might specifically target that area where you're feeling something.
I'm an old guy, and I've been at this for over 50 years, and I can tell you truthfully, I've talked to men and women when we talk about cancer, and I'm going to throw out a phrase to you and get you to react to it. When you talk about screening for this or that, prostate, breast cancer, whatever, and they'll say, I don't want to know. What do you say to them?
Well, some people don't want to know, but I would ask in response to that question, what would you want to do about it if you did know? If you want to have treatment, earlier is definitely better.
All right. Before I put up on screen, I want to put up on screen the Northern Hospital logo. But before that, I'm just very curious, very quickly, who or what sort of led you to a career in medicine? Was it a teacher, a person, was a family member, or what?
My best friend's father is a physician. There are no physicians in my family, but seeing his practice and how he was able to help people definitely inspired me to go into medicine.
That's great. And we're glad you did, too. Up on screen, here's the information. ChooseNorthern.org is the general website. ChooseNorthern.org. Please check that out for all sorts of great information. And please do what Dr. Bond said. And if you're a woman, get that screening as soon as possible and appropriate. Doc, will you come back sometime?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
Appreciate it.
We'll be right back. Now on Triad Today, and if you ever wanted to meet up with somebody that's done a lot to inspire and help, assist entrepreneurs over the last few years, she's right here. and our good friend who's been on the show many times before. Karen Barnes is CEO of something called Agile City. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Jim. Great to be here as always.
For people that maybe just moved in the area or don't know, give us another quick recap on what Agile City is.
Absolutely. So Agile City is a nonprofit. We work with, as you mentioned, entrepreneurs and innovators to start, build, grow, and scale businesses here in the Triad region. And most recently, we started a startup grants competition.
That's right, which you
Yes.
alluded to before. We had you on the program before. We sort of talked about it in the early stages. Now, remind us what that program's about and where it stands right now.
Absolutely. So we're at a very exciting point right now with the Venture Winston Grants. The mission for the Venture Winston Grants is to attract startups to our region. So we're giving away up to $1 million this year in grants for up to 20 startups to move here for a 12-month residency.
Let me do the math on that. $1 million in grants for
a $50,000 grant per startup.
Oh, wow.
That's real money. Yeah.
Now, when people say startup, we're not just talking about a 19-year-old. I mean, it could be an older person.
Absolutely. You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, Jim, because that's a big fallacy. It's a big myth about entrepreneurs. The majority of new businesses are started by people in their 40s and their 50s.
Right. How about when they're almost 70? Would you help me?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I need help, but that has nothing to do with this topic. What are the next steps? Where are you going with the grants?
We're currently in the evaluation phase. We got about 1,200 applications. So in about the next 2 weeks, we'll have that whittled down. And then October the 9th is our final pitch event, where we will narrow down to the 20 that will receive the grants.
And these are from different parts of the country.
We got applications from all 50 states and 22 countries.
Good Lord.
It was astonishing.
You have thrown out a word to me. Well, you say a lot of words off camera. We won't get into that. You have thrown out a word to me on this program before, ecosystem.
Yes.
And I want to know, remind people what you mean by that and what things are happening in our ecosystem.
When we talk about ecosystem, we talk about all of the support organizations that work together to support startups. So it could be universities and politicians and companies and nonprofits and mentors and investors. That's the kind of ecosystem that is required to help these companies. But the Triad ecosystem here is on fire, Jim. So I wanted to share some of the really good news that we've gotten in the last several weeks. About 2 weeks ago, the North Carolina Secretary of State released a report that said new business starts in North Carolina are through the roof. And here in Forsyth County, new business starts are up 64% and up 94% in Guilford County.
Even despite the pandemic.
So actually 12%, only 12% of those are saying that it's directly due to the pandemic that they are starting new businesses. So to me, this is a really strong signal that all the work we're doing to help start new businesses is really working.
Now, since you're saying that entrepreneurship is on the rise, is there anything else we can do to fill the gaps other than all the great stuff you're doing?
Right. Well, we can continue to support the entrepreneurial support organizations that we have here in town and in the region. For example, Launch Greensboro is just getting a new cohort started of about 20 new founders.
Right.
The Center for Creative Economy just launched their recent cohort this past weekend. They've got 6 in their cohort. And then we've got a new cohort of healthcare startups from Nordic countries going through the Winston Starts Incubator Program.
Coming through here.
Coming through Winston.
I tell you what, it's just exciting stuff. Before we lose time, I want to put up 2 things. One, for Agile City, so go to that, agilecity.ws, stands for Winston-Salem. Please check that out and all the great things that Karen is up to help so many people. And also thanks to David Mounts and Inmar Intelligence for all their help in supporting this initiative and many others to help the community. You can visit www.inmar.com for that as well. Karen Barnes, you talk about things being on fire. You are on fire and you're doing great things, and we appreciate your enthusiasm.
Thank you, Jim. Always happy to be here.
All right, my friend.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Now, on Triad Today, we're always glad when some of the good folks from Carolina University can stop by, and now we have a first-time visitor with us, and we're going to introduce to you right now. With me is Dr. Gia Guo. She's Assistant Professor of Leadership at John Wesley School of Leadership at Carolina University. Thanks for coming over.
Thank you for joining and invite me.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a very pleasure to come here. And I think it's also a very good opportunity to share with you guys about our leadership program.
I'm anxious to hear about it. Now, how would you describe the mission of the leadership program? How would you describe it?
So I feel like our program is designed to kind of provide a sequential of courses that help people to understand leadership and also to become a future leader. So on that base, we have like a lot of like different courses and also like knowledge to enhance the comprehensive understanding of leadership on more like advanced level.
What do you think, in sort of specifically, given examples, what do you think the program can offer to students?
So I guess like the most like the first and foremost thing is like students can have this opportunity to learn the firsthand and most advanced knowledge from the academic field. And I think secondly, a lot of students like I taught from that they told me that this is a very good place for them to make connections with people who have like a similar like desire to understand, to learn and to understand leadership, and also to make friends, to explore their connections in this field.
A great learning environment for that. Let's talk about leadership in the world right now. It seems like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, that there's a sort of a change in the way leadership is today. Mm-hmm. What, maybe even in the context of the pandemic having effect, I don't know. But I guess what I'm asking you is, how do you see the role of a leader today?
Yeah, sure. I guess like we all know that the COVID-19 has changed our life like in all aspects, so including leadership. So I'll say like the concept of leadership actually has been changed from the traditional defined leadership role to a more like broad and innovative, maybe more enlightened leadership role. So it's not just about like a multi-level interactions between leader and followers to achieve a certain goal, but it's more like a diversified.
We can all be leaders, right?
Yeah, and also like it probably be mediated by like a technology, like a different kind of like a platform that people have not experienced before, and those diversified like techniques, like a systems we call like a substitute for leadership, so that people will like they strive to learn those things so
Right.
that they can handle different type of leadership practices.
You sent me an email one day, and I want to make sure I get this right. And you mentioned, you put a phrase on there. It says, future ready leader. What do you mean about future ready?
So I guess it's also like kind of like a notion that currently suggested by the scholars that future-ready leader is that previously we say that people are motivated by a desire for personal success, but future-ready leader, they need to care more about others. So they need to be prepared. They're able to adapt to new environment. So that it's more of a changing from a right or wrong mindset to a mindset of like being a scientist, so that to explore and communicate,
Right.
to iterate like every day on a daily basis. So I think that is kind of like a notion of future.
That's very interesting. I just, the program itself just sounds fascinating to me, and I really applaud what you're doing. But I want to put up on screen here, just for general information, carolinau.edu is the website, carolinau.edu, and I hope you will check that out. And I really appreciate your visit today, and maybe we can get you to come back sometime.
Thank you. Yeah, really appreciate.
All
Thank you,
right.
guys.
Thanks, Dr. Quo. We'll be right back after this. Hey, time to spend a few minutes with Mr. Theater. We don't even need to put his name up. I don't need to say, no, this is Dave Briggs, of course. We welcome back to the show. Dave Briggs, director of High Point Theater. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Jim.
And on a light note, just very quickly, I heard a little birdie told me that you threw the first pitch out at a Rockers game recently. How did that go?
I did. It was great fun. It was on Thursday, September 2nd. It was Thirsty Thursday, so everybody was primed and
Did
ready
you get
to
it to
go.
the plate?
I got it to the plate.
Wow.
It was great fun. You know, I'm an old jock at heart, but I probably would have done better kicking the ball.
Yeah, soccer. Yeah, you were a great soccer player, but I'm glad you threw it. All right.
Yeah, I did.
Now, let me ask you, on a serious note, don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but just sort of a COVID review type thing. Let's remind people, because this thing's going up and down. We've got the variant and all this stuff. Masking, capacity in the theater, seating, What's going on?
Well, capacity is, we're still at full capacity. Guilford County Commissioners passed a mandate that any indoor event or anyone indoors needed to wear a mask, so that's a requirement that we're fulfilling. So when folks come in, they're gonna scan their ticket, they have to have a mask to walk in the door.
Okay.
And they'll come in and take their seat, and hopefully, anytime they're in a public location, that they'll keep their mask on.
Okay. Now, speaking of the pandemic, I know that, man, you really had to do, you probably worked 40 times harder during the pandemic than ever before because you had to keep moving things around. Acts coming from all over the country, all over the world. One of the things we kept talking about was Ben Vereen's coming.
Right.
Everybody loves Ben Vereen, the great actor. And then you found out something, a few days ago, there's been another change on Ben Vereen?
I did, yeah, and great news for Ben Vereen, a little bit hard for us, but Ben's going to be in a TV comedy series starting this fall.
Wow.
They start filming a couple of weeks before our show in October. So the date that we had available is a filming date for him, so we're working on rescheduling. I had hoped to have a date for that today to announce. So in October, when I come back, I will have a date locked in.
Sometime for next year.
Yeah, and we'll move it from October 30th to probably someday in April, and it'll be a Friday or a Saturday, but we're really looking forward to having Ben with us,
Oh,
but
what a
excited for him.
Great performer. Now, let's talk about several things coming up that are, as far as we know, are locked in.
So far, so good.
Tell me about Mike Super on Saturday, September 25th.
Mike Super is just an amazing magician, and I don't use the word amazing, probably maybe I use it too much, but I mean, he will make things disappear like as close as you and I are. He also does the large illusions, a la Copperfield. So yeah, he's going to be doing some predictions that he does. He's going to make things appear out of thin air and maybe even make a person or two disappear out of thin air.
Wow.
Who knows? But no, Mike is outstanding. He was a finalist on America's Got Talent several seasons ago, and he's truly a brilliant magician, one of the best that we will have brought in.
There's some politicians maybe he can make disappear. I
I'm
thought we'd
thinking
bring
that
them up
too.
on stage. Now, the Brothers Revival, Saturday, October 9th. What is that about?
Well, that is a brother, the Allman Brothers. It's actually a legacy band. David Goldfleece is in that band, and a couple of other folks who have played in the Derek Trucks band, as well as the Allman Brothers. These guys are amazing. It sounds like the Allman Brothers. They've got an amazing stage presence. They use our beautiful Hammond B3 organ on stage. It's going to take you back. They are a great legacy band.
That's cool. Now, there's also something coming up on Saturday, October 23rd that I was reading about, and you can see all this on the website. I'll give you that in just a second. Best of the Eagles, Saturday, October 23rd.
This is another legacy band, not a legacy band, but a tribute band, and they're going to perform the best music of the Eagles. You know, whether you're standing on a corner in Winslow, Arizona, or whatever you're doing.
Right.
But you're not going to want to miss this show. They're really fun.
That's great. Now, I alluded to the fact the website, and I keep praising this website, Dave's new website that was designed for High Point Theater. It's great. It's very accessible. Go to it, highpointtheater.com. Now, make sure you type in 2 T's, highpointtheater.com. Check that out. But now, if you quickly want to grab some tickets and buy season tickets or whatever, you can call the box office, and that number's on screen, 887-3001. And to you, Dave, are you going to stay over for the roundtable?
Yeah, I will. Thanks.
All right. You can throw out the first pitch of the roundtable.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks.
We'll be right back. Now on Triad Today, just about time for the roundtable, but a quick shout out to our good friends here at the Cena Botanical Garden. Their website's on screen. Please visit that, and please visit the garden. You can have your luncheons and dinner meetings and weddings and receptions. You can do everything out here, including this, which we're going to do right now. On my right is Ogie Overman, but always on the political left, the great broadcaster journalist. Speaking of a great broadcaster, my friend of 180 years, Dave Plyler, who is also chairman of the Forsyth County Commissioners, and we have held Dave Briggs over from the last segment. Mr. Theater is here from High Point Theater. Guys, last week, on a very serious note, a student, as you know, at Mount Tabor High School was shot and killed by another student. That follows 20 years worth of mass killings at places like Columbine, Sandy Hook, Parkland. And every time, and we'll come on this show and I say it and say it and say it, are we finally going to get to the point where the feds and the state governments are going to allocate money for metal detectors and electronically monitored locking doors in schools? Ogie Overman.
I don't think that solves the problem, Jim. I think it skirts the issue. You're not attacking the root problem of getting guns out of the hands of crazy people, and nuts and just psychos. And
They have access to this, there's more guns than people in this country.
That's right, but they can leave their gun in the car and shoot people
And
as
still
they're
in
coming
the
out of
parking lot.
school. You know, it doesn't really do much.
Dave Plyler.
I tend to agree with Ogie. You can have all the protections in the world, but someone's got to get around it somehow, some way, sometime. But if you don't have it, you wish you did.
Dave.
Yeah, I agree with both of these gentlemen. It's time for magnetometers, searches, but it's not just the state and the county and the federal, but a lot of local school districts, especially where I grew up in Ohio. You know, those are local tax dollars that fund the schools, and that's where those funds need to come from. For
All
those
right,
devices.
the city of Minneapolis is now limiting traffic stops for minor offenses such as expired license plates. The officials there think this will prevent some of the violence that sometimes ensues from routine traffic stops. Are you okay with this new policy? And if so, would you like to see cities in our area adopt it? Okie.
Well, here again, Jim, I mean, it may do some good, but really the root issue is better cops, better trained cops, vet cops better, train them better, get good people out there on the street.
Dave Plyler, what do you think
Once
about
again, I tend to agree with Ogie Oberman. You can do all kinds of things and try to make all kinds of things happen. But sometimes all kinds of things, even with the best plans, won't work.
Dave Briggs?
Well, they're still violating the law. Perhaps like a red light cam, where the person's license plate is filmed and then they get sent a bill. That might reduce some of the traffic stops.
Yeah, and if you've got if a police officer has probable cause of a serious crime or whatever, we're not talking about that. We're just talking about eliminating the routine stuff. California lawmakers want to pay addicts, listen to this, to stay sober. And so what they're going to do is give them cash for every negative drug test. Good idea or bad idea, Ogie?
No. Jim, that leaves out the spiritual component of recovery. There's no recovery happening there. They're bribing people, chances they could go out and get drugs, get somebody else's urine. I mean, that's just not the way to do it. It doesn't attack the problem.
Mr. Chairman.
You know, I was born in California, Orange, California, where they grow orange trees.
Right.
But I got to tell you, that's a foolish idea. But on the other hand, it is California. And when people use the word liberal, California jumps right off the map.
That is kind of liberal. It's more than liberal, it's weird, Dave.
I'd rather see them put their money into treatment. I don't think that giving somebody money to stay sober, maybe I should get that because I didn't drive over the speed limit.
All right, an American couple has been fined $5,000 and sentenced to 1 year in jail for falsifying their vaccine card. Now, guys, given the life and death or potential life and death nature of this kind of fraud, should the crime carry more jail time than just a year? Ogie.
Well, I think that's a pretty strong message. I mean, I'm glad to see them get jail time and fined. I mean, it's time to get over it, man. Get over it.
Yeah,
Get
Dave,
the shot.
That's right.
You know, I hate to make the comparison because it's not a good comparison, but the fact is we're in a pandemic right now, and we have some laws, statewide, locally, that feature a mandate which could do all kinds of things to you if you don't follow the law. However, the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners adopted the policy without a mandate and put their faith in the citizens of the county, hoping that they will listen to our strong recommendation.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Dave, quickly.
Well, it's just a matter of time before black market CDC vaccination cards came out. I think hitting them in their wallet is probably the best place to do it. I really don't think I want to overburden the penal system by putting people in jail for that.
Amen.
All right, a congressman from California is proposing that the standard work week be reduced from 40 hours to 32 hours. He believes the shorter work week will improve employee health and productivity. A similar thing has been done in Iceland with some success. Good idea or bad idea, Ogie?
Where was that idea when I was punching the clock? It has worked. I mean, a lot of countries,
It's worked.
not just,
Yeah.
Scandinavian countries do it, European, Japanese people have done it.
Dave, 32-hour work week?
No, 40 hours, you can just barely get the work you have to do if you have a job. I mean, a real job.
Yeah.
And even in doctor's offices, 40 hours won't even cut it.
Yeah, Dave Briggs.
Well, so is the person still going to be making what he would be making for 40
We
hours
don't
a
know.
week or for 32?
Good
Let's
question.
do the math. A 10-hour-a-week employee brings home $400 a month. If he's only working 32 hours, it's $320. Who makes up the difference?
That's a good point. Finally, a Phoenix, Arizona couple who pledged their love to each other in preschool 20 years ago have reunited and now plan to remarry. They met in preschool. Guys, did you ever tell a little girl in preschool that you loved her and wanted to marry her, Ogie?
I don't remember, not in preschool. I think I waited about the sixth grade,
Sixth
or
grade.
sixth grade, yeah.
Yeah. Dave Plyler.
Oh, I didn't do anything like that in preschool. I didn't really understand how it worked.
Dave Briggs, did you?
I don't recall.
Yeah.
I don't recall.
Thanks, Bill Clinton.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I tell you, I'm sitting here with three heartbreakers. That's what it is. They all know what they were doing in elementary school. All right, well, that's all the time we have. Oh, except for this. A Northern Virginia woman who works for a company that's still keeping all their employees at home, working from home. She just confessed that she's been wearing the same blouse for 240 days on 240 Zoom calls. Let me repeat that. She hasn't changed her blouse in 240 days. Upon hearing this, her coworkers who normally would sit near her at the office have asked the company not to send them back to work.
Don't blame
We all understand that, don't we? All right, for all of us preschoolers here, I'm Jim Longworth. We'll see you next week.